He had no talent. That's what many people said about Dennis Johnson early in his career, but they were dead wrong. Dennis Johnson was actually one of the most talented and clutch performers in NBA history. He was a three-time NBA champion and Hall of Fame guard whose professional life was defined by an unwavering, sometimes abrasive, competitive drive. The word hated when talking about Dennis Johnson's career isn't about personal malice. It's about examining his intense rivalries through the lens of an all-consuming desire to win. This competitive fire made him both a difficult teammate at times and an invaluable asset in the biggest moments. Dennis Johnson's journey to basketball immortality was far from conventional. He was a prototypical late bloomer who got drafted 29th overall in 1976 after overcoming early life struggles. People knew him as a troublemaker with perceived character issues. Despite these early reservations, Johnson quickly established himself as an elite talent. He became the on-court leader of the Seattle Supersonics team that won the 1979 NBA championship, earning Finals MVP honors. Johnson's reputation was built on his versatile game. He was a fierce and devastating defensive player, a skilled offensive contributor, and most importantly, a clutch performer with a remarkably high basketball IQ. Larry Bird, his future teammate, would later call him as smart a basketball player as anyone I've ever played with. For an athlete of Johnson's caliber, hate was a powerful motivator, but its meaning was complex. This analysis shows that for Johnson, hate was a crucible of competition, not always a personal grudge. It can be broken down into four distinct forms that define his most notable rivalries. If you're enjoying this deep dive into Dennis Johnson's competitive nature, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments which rivalry you think was the most intense. Johnson's career was full of confrontations from the beginning. Before his famous Celtics tenure, he was traded from both the Seattle Supersonics and the Phoenix Suns despite his immense talent. This happened because of his clashes with coaches Lenny Wilkens and John McLeod. The first major rivalry involves Andrew Toney. Andrew Toney, a Philadelphia 76ers shooting guard, earned the nickname the Boston Strangler from the Boston media for his exceptional scoring ability against the Celtics. Toney's dominance in big games was so consistent that he became a major problem for Boston's championship hopes. In the summer of 1983, the Celtics traded for Dennis Johnson, specifically so they would have somebody that could match up with Toney. Johnson's task was to use his defensive genius to nullify the scoring machine who had become Boston's weakness. Next up was Bill Laimbeer. The conflict with Bill Laimbeer and the Bad Boys Detroit Pistons was a clash of physical philosophy. The animosity between the Boston Celtics and the Pistons reached its boiling point in the late 1980s, driven by mutual hatred. The Pistons were a team defined by their physical play and big antagonists like Laimbeer and Dennis Rodman, who used intimidation to assert their will. During the 1987 Eastern Conference Finals, the animosity boiled over. Laimbeer and Dennis Rodman tag-teamed Larry Bird, with Laimbeer launching his body into Bird and Rodman tripping his legs. A video from a separate game shows Dennis Johnson, and Laimbeer decided they want a piece of each other, leading to Johnson swinging at Laimbeer and both players being ejected. The hatred was not personal to Dennis Johnson, but was a shared sentiment across the entire Celtics roster. Johnson's role was as a loyal combatant, willing to stand up for his teammates. The third major rivalry was with Isaiah Thomas. Dennis Johnson's rivalry with Isaiah Thomas was a high-stakes duel between two backcourt generals. This was a classic chess match between the leaders of two rival dynasties. Johnson, the steady clutch point guard of the Celtics, squared off against Thomas, the dynamic leader of the Bad Boys. Their rivalry reached its peak in Game 5 of the 1987 Eastern Conference Finals. With only 5 seconds left and the Pistons clinging to a 1-point lead, Larry Bird made a legendary steal on Thomas's inbound pass and immediately flipped the ball to a streaking Dennis Johnson for the game-winning layup with 1 second remaining. While Thomas was criticized for his lazy pass, Johnson was praised for his next-level basketball IQ and for reading the situation and cutting to the rim before Bird had even secured the ball. This moment cemented Johnson's legacy as a clutch performer. The most fascinating rivalry was with Magic Johnson. The rivalry between Dennis Johnson and Magic Johnson was the pinnacle of professional conflict. This relationship was part of the historic Boston Celtics-Los Angeles Lakers rivalry that dominated the 1980s. Dennis Johnson's entry into the 1984 NBA Finals would redefine the series. With the Lakers leading 2-1, Johnson approached his coach, K.C. Jones, and asked to be the primary defender on Magic. This decision proved to be a masterstroke. Johnson held Magic to a sub-pair 17-point average over the final 4 games, which the Celtics won in 7 games. The defining moment came in the final minute of Game 7. Johnson, playing tough defense, stole the ball directly from Magic, a play that sealed the championship for Boston. Decades later, Magic called Dennis Johnson his toughest defender and the greatest defensive player he had ever faced. Magic admitted that DJ kept him off balance because he was constantly anticipating Magic's moves. The relationship between these two was not personal dislike, but rather a high-level competitive clash. Magic also referred to Johnson as the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. The intense frustration Magic felt during games was a direct result of Johnson's genius. But the most unique and painful conflict for Dennis Johnson wasn't with an opponent at all. It was with his teammate and friend, Larry Bird. Their on-court partnership was a testament to their mutual respect and shared basketball brilliance. Bird himself called Johnson the most intelligent player he'd ever played with. Their chemistry and unspoken connection and trust were legendary, a bond forged in the heat of 3 NBA Finals battles against the Lakers. However, the camaraderie that defined their playing careers was fractured by a post-retirement professional decision. When Bird took on a front office role with the Celtics, he was tasked with compiling a list of coaching candidates. Johnson, who had spent 4 years as a Celtics assistant coach, was not considered for the job. The rift deepened when Bird later became the head coach of the Indiana Pacers and again did not offer Johnson a position. The nuances of this conflict are critical to understanding its impact. Bird's stated rationale was that he believed Johnson was set in Boston and that he wanted to be a head coach, not an assistant. Bird also knew that Celtics ownership had no intention of hiring Johnson for the head role, and he had already decided to hire only 2 assistants for his Pacers staff. From Bird's perspective, these were rational, business-based decisions. However, Johnson took it that way, and the bond between the two unraveled. Johnson, who had given everything to the Celtics as a player and coach, felt that his loyalty and contributions were not valued in the cold, transactional world of sports business. The tragic dichotomy here is that the on-court partnership, which was built on perfect trust and instinct, was undone by the professional realities that followed. This conflict was not a rivalry born of competition, but a profound personal offense, and it was arguably the most painful of Johnson's career. Dennis Johnson's legacy is a testament to his ability to thrive in a crucible of competition. The 5 figures we've discussed represent the full spectrum of his conflicts, each revealing a different dimension of his character. Magic Johnson represented the rivalry of mutual respect, where on-court frustration blossomed into post-career admiration. Bill Laimbeer embodied the physical rivalry, a collective animosity against a style of play that the Celtics unified to confront. Andrew Toney was the strategic obsession, a problem so persistent that the Celtics organization acquired Johnson specifically to solve it. Isaiah Thomas was the rival's captain, whose clash with Johnson was defined by an iconic moment of clutch brilliance and competitive triumph. Larry Bird represents the most poignant conflict, a personal falling out over professional opportunities that fractured a partnership forged in success. The hate in Dennis Johnson's career was a powerful force that he channeled into victory. His success was not just a product of talent, but of his willingness to confront and overcome every form of opposition. This uncompromising competitive nature solidified his place as a Hall of Fame player whose legacy was truly forged in conflict. What made Johnson special wasn't that he hated these players personally. It was that his competitive drive was so intense, so all-consuming, that it created these memorable rivalries. Whether it was strategic necessity, like with Andrew Toney, physical confrontation with Bill Laimbeer, thematic battles with Isaiah Thomas, professional respect with Magic Johnson, or personal betrayal with Larry Bird, Johnson used every form of conflict as fuel for greatness. If you enjoyed learning about Dennis Johnson's incredible competitive spirit and the rivalries that defined his career, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into basketball history and the complex relationships that shaped the game we love.